we Malaysians love to say whatever is, just pops into our head. So if it's something that is nice and good, it's nice and good. Sebab, obviously kita tak, segan untuk menyebut sesuatu. Dan kalau benda tu positif, that's nice, right? We don't hold back. But it's not so nice lah when you're trying to think, not you're trying. You have already thought about it, but boom, it's also come out of your mouth.
At certain point in time, when the connected party, either family or very close relation to the person who had committed suicide, mungkin dia perlukan masa untuk either process or grieve. So I think what I learned to try to do is that listen first, the timing.
Dalam komuniti Melayu Islam, mungkin akan ada yang cakap, I think ada je yang cakap, dia dengar berita tentang someone yang commit suicide, confirm tak masuk syurga. So that really hurts, because when we talk about suicide, apa yang menyebab, part of it because of an illness, mental illness. So tolong jangan judgemental, jangan menambahkan sakit, kan, sedih keluarga yang sedang menghadapi berita yang memang I think is the worst thing that can happen to any families.
Hai, salam sejahtera. Selamat datang ke episod ke-35 Kita Family Podcast. Di sini, kami akan membincangkan perihal yang berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita dan meraihkan masyarakat yang berbilang agama, kaum, kepercayaan rupa dan juga keupayaan. Kami menghargai hidup secara inklusif yang mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakat, terutamanya bagi mereka yang kurang atau berlainan upaya. Hari ini saya rasa episod kami sangat special kerana kami ada full quorum di studio. Didi bersama-sama saya hari ini di studio. Didi telah pulang dari Kota Kinabalu.
Hanya untuk this episode, bukan balik for good, right?
Anit, hello. Kakak SK,
Apa khabar?
dan di sebelah saya Nori.
Assalamualaikum. Hai.
So, oleh kerana hari ini kami ada full quorum, we thought why not kita buat episod yang similar to yang kita pernah buat sebelum ni, iaitu ChitChat MakMak Neurodivergent, iaitu topik-topik atau perbincangan yang kami sering dengar hari-hari di antara kawan-kawan yang sama ada kanak-kanak yang anak yang neurodivergent ataupun mereka yang tiada anak yang neurodivergent. So basically based from conversations that we come across daily in our lives.
And what people ask us.
And yes, of course, what people ask us, sometimes people's reaction as well. So salah satu topik yang kami rasa sedikit hangat sekarang is on the topic of suicide.
Okay, wait. This year, Malaysia did what we thought was so amazing. On May 22nd, Dewan Rakyat finally passed the law decriminalizing suicide. So Section 309 of the Penal Code is no longer applicable. So no stigma, no such thing as attempted suicide being a crime. You're not going to be arrested for it. So let's discuss this further. Sorry,
Thanks.
commercial break over.
Terima kasih. I don't think that was a commercial break. That's a very important point and we're very grateful for that, kan. So kenapa topik ni sangat penting untuk komuniti anak kita, right? So kalau kita lihat sedikit statistik, this is from NHS, di mana nyatakan up to 66% of autistic adults have considered suicide, and autistic children are 28 times more likely to attempt suicide. So ini memang perkara yang sangat membimbangkan semua orang, especially if you have children who are different. Dan ini bukan sahaja mereka yang, as we say, more severely autistic atau level 2 or 3, tetapi kekerapannya juga tinggi dalam level 1 kerana their mental health is affected. So I think it's very apt we discuss it today, and it is also Mental Health Awareness Month in October. So maybe jom kita mulakan sedikit perbincangan dari segi maybe what shouldn't we say to someone who has experienced this loss to suicide, losing a child or a family member to suicide, kadang-kadang orang yang bertanya soalan kepada ahli keluarga, it can come, not to say can come across, memang tak sesuai. Maybe it's not so sensitive, kan? So maybe kita boleh mula dengan Nori.
Spotlight on me. I was just trying to look something up. Okay.
Oops.
No, boleh. No, actually boleh je mulakan dengan saya sebab hari ni saya berpeluang menghadiri sebuah program pada pagi tadi di mana sesi sebelum sesi panel saya telah membincangkan topik ini. Very timely that you're asking me this question because kebetulan dapat dengar pagi tadi mereka membincangkan antara benda-benda yang kita boleh buat untuk memberi sokongan terhadap mereka yang terkesan akibat daripada kes-kes suicide like that. It's a loved one, a friend, a family member and things like that. So it's not just about what can you do, but I thought antara perkara penting yang dibincangkan pada pagi tadi ialah what should you not do?
Yep.
Okay, what should you not do? I think sifat manusia, and then tadi sebelum kita mula buat recording ni kan kita ada membincangkan sesama kita. Orang Malaysia ni kerap suka menyebut benda-benda yang terlintas di fikiran. It's a very Malaysian thing, right? Kalau lama tak jumpa somebody straight away, it's like, wah, you look so good. Ataupun, dah berisi sikit like we Malaysians love to say whatever is just pops into our head. So if it's something that is nice and good, it's nice and good sebab obviously kita tak segan untuk menyebut sesuatu, dan kalau benda tu positif, that's nice, right? We don't hold back. But it's not so nice lah when you're trying to think, not you're trying, you have already thought about it, but boom, it has also come out of your mouth. So one of the things that was brought up this morning, so the program was actually called, was it Wellness Connect? Reconnect. Yeah. So it was organized by Emotion Pod. We can share the link. Was that somebody who had lost a child, when they had people coming up, first of all, she was saying that it became very difficult and awkward. I think a lot of people didn't know how to speak to her and how to lend that kind of support. So which is why it was amazing and very brave of her to be able to share. So bukan nak kata orang tak adalah terfikirkan langsung tentang perasaan seseorang lain, tapi kadang-kadang bila kita dah mula bercakap tu, sifat dan tabiat, that habit tu akan datang balik. So she said some of the most like one of the most difficult things suddenly that she was asked was like, how did she do it? Like asking about the details, as if that was like the most important thing. Macam nak tahu, So yes, we are curious as human beings, and of course it's going to cross our minds about like, how did that happen? What happened and stuff. But this is not the time to say what you are thinking, people. When it comes to keadaan atau situasi macam ni, another one of those times where we should use a pause. Or if you are not sure what to say, baik tak payah cakap apa-apa pun. Maybe just be there to listen, or just be there to say that I'm so sorry this has happened to you. And sometimes that is enough. And then kita tunggu sendirilah kalau sesiapa yang kita tengah cakap dengan orang tu, kalau dia sendiri ingin berkongsi, then be there to listen. So I think that's one of the things that we should think about, like what not to talk about, right?
Yes.
Like, and so maybe don't ask about the details and don't immediately how are you it's quite, I think, an obvious thing to say that it is a very difficult thing that person is having to go through, right? And then on the other side of it, what if it's not the loss? If I can just also mention before I forget, katalah you meet somebody who shares that they've been thinking about it, suicide ideation. So katalah seseorang sanggup berkongsi pada kita that dia pernah memikirkan, dia terfikir dan dia berada di suatu dalam satu keadaan di mana dia telah memikirkan perkara ni, which is so painful, at that point in time, I think that's not the time you would scold them, right? Or say, how could you do that? Are you crazy? These are some of the things that I think are not helpful for you to say. So it's important to think about the what not to do also lah. Not just what to do. And I know the rest of you have some ideas about the what to do part, but I wanted to talk about the what not to do part.
Yeah, I think that's important, and you brought up very real scenario in terms of people's responses, kan? And even the fact that you brought up pasal the question of, how are you? Sometimes it's with the expectation that orang tu akan cakap, I am fine. And the person in the on the receiving end, if it's me, someone's asking me, how are you? And I've been through something probably traumatic, I'm just going to say I'm fine. Sebab I'm not ready for the question that comes next, or sometimes it's toxic positivity that comes next, or the you should be grateful because there are people far worse off than you, so these are some things that I have heard personally myself. So I think it's good that you brought it up.
And also maybe just to remind people, it doesn't have to be dengan niat yang jahat. We're not saying that everybody is saja nak menyibuk lah, nak buat drama and all this kind of thing. Sometimes it's with good intentions. But what I'm saying is janganlah terlepas cakap. Pause lah. That is the time to pause and don't just do this. I said lah, it's very Malaysian thing. You all semua anggur, right? This Malaysian thing of apa yang terlintas dekat fikiran you, terus you luahkan. So I think it's more like check lah.
Tanpa filter.
Yes, filter self please. Is I think the point.
Yes.
So just to add on what Nuri mentioned just now about timing, needing to give time, maybe for us to just listen first, kan? At certain point in time, when the connected party, either family or very close relation to the person who had committed suicide, mungkin dia perlukan masa untuk either process or grieve. So I think what I learned to try to do is that listen first, the timing. Kan? How
but don't talk about it, right? Maybe just be there for them, just hug, just be quiet. Maybe nak cakap, maybe tak cakap pasal that topic at all.
So memang as individual, we always nak jump into action, kan? That's quite very kind Malaysian action, or any kind individual. Let's fix it.
Let's do something.
So in timing, like you say, allow time to listen. How are you? And boleh gauge lah sama ada ready or not ready yet.
I think I want to add two things kan. Satu, dalam komuniti Melayu Islam, mungkin akan ada yang cakap, I think ada je yang cakap, dia dengar berita tentang someone yang commit suicide, confirm tak masuk syurga. So that really hurts, because when we talk about suicide, apa yang menyebab, part of it because of an illness, mental illness. So tolong jangan judgemental, jangan menambahkan sakit, kan, sedih keluarga yang sedang menghadapi berita yang memang I think is the worst thing that can happen to any families. Dan lagi satu, ni sifat Malaysian juga ni, yang nak jadi orang pertama share dekat social media bila ada video-video kan, macam mana seseorang tu commit suicide, dan mulalah nak viral. Jadi orang pertama yang post, lepas tu bila viral, seronoknya post dia viral. Kadang-kadang nak share dalam WhatsApp group lah. Sedangkan kalau untuk media pun ada guideline. You should not share so much to that level kan, detail of a suicide. Tak patut lah. Sebab what do you get from that bila you nak share kan? Do you know that when you share those things untuk orang yang memang dalam keadaan tertekan, mungkin belum level ideation, dia tak terfikir lagi, tapi nampak cara bagi idea pula. So please be mindful, kalau ada orang share dengan kita, stop it at kita stop kan. Jangan kita lagi nak ni, mungkin kita pun boleh bagi peringatan lah kan pada sesiapa dalam grup mana, kalau ada yang share, kita tak patut share ni, kita tak patut kan all these videos, gambar,
Yeah.
berita pun sepatutnya tak detail kan. Dia ada
Yeah.
guideline tu, walaupun kita sebagai orang awam bukan ahli media, tapi guideline tu sebenarnya ada sebab, dan kita sebagai orang awam pun patut menghormatilah kan pada mangsa lah.
Yelah, kita suka sebut pasal it's good to be curious kan. Tapi kalau bab topik ni tak payah curious lah. Sila tahan diri daripada nak menyibuk sangat. I think this kind of thing is just,
Because I think you need to realise yang orang yang mempunyai tekanan mental, they are in a very fragile situation. So any small thing can trip them. So when you encourage conversations like this, ataupun mereka tahu pasal ada seseorang itu yang telah membunuh diri or something like that, they will start on a slippery slope. That's also one of the things can happen. The other thing that can happen is mereka akan pause. Mereka akan cakap, kalau mereka tengok apa yang terjadi, they may be able to pause, correct and seek help supaya tak jadi pada mereka. Tetapi ada juga yang possibility yang mereka pun akan cakap, kalau
the
dia
other
boleh
way.
buat, dia boleh buat, saya pun boleh. And that's what we want to avoid. So same thing kalau the do nots is said very clearly by Nuri, tapi the do's is also to tell whoever is grieving that I'm here, and when you're ready to talk, I will be here. Because sometimes it's chaotic, sometimes it's crazy, and sometimes they may want to say something, tapi it's not the right time. And
it's a good step though.
yes,
If somebody is still prepared to share.
Yes.
That means dia belum terus nak isolate diri.
betul.
Is not decided to keep it a secret. Is not like really removing themselves from the world.
Yeah.
It's a very positive thing if the cry for help too has come.
Yes.
So-
And if you are the beneficiary of that cry for help, please treat that so respectfully. Somebody has come to you for help.
Yes.
So maybe clearly, if we need to, if we send something, the clear articulation is there anything I can help?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, how can I help?
How can I help?
Yeah.
To when you sense something may be amiss, ada gejala-gejala yang ada alarm bell lah. Although statistically, it does seem that many do not have any signs prior to their ideation or the action actually. Yeah.
Sebelum tu.
Sebelum tu. Then that's why many are caught up. But we are now talking about what can we be conscious of if something has happened.
Yes. And if we know.
And
Ada
if-
tanda-tanda yang menunjukkan bahawa seseorang itu dalam keadaan bahaya lah. Yeah, that is not the, there was another share this morning. If you hear something as serious and as dangerous as that, and the audience was a lot of young people, and I think the speaker just said, this is not the time to be the best friend that keeps the secrets.
Yeah.
Shh, I won't tell anybody that you're trying to kill yourself, okay? That's not the
That's
time
not
to
the
do
time,
that.
yeah.
It's actually the time to inform somebody who can help or who needs to know, because it's literally about potentially saving someone's life. So that judgment call is also important, right?
Yeah.
This is like macam ini dah emergency dah.
Yeah. And this is not only at anak-anak level, at any level, the office ke, any relationship. This is the code of actually professional conduct, of care. Yeah. If the risk is known, that there is that risk or thinking of suicide, it's time to alert
Yes.
professional help.
Yes. Pass on a number,
That's right.
right? So if you cannot, you're not sure whether you can make the person do, but put other ideas in their head. The ideas of not to do this,
yes.
right?
Or would you like to come with me and we'll go and see
I'll
somebody?
go with you. You
Yes.
don't have to
Yes.
be
Go
alone. Yeah. Or we can call this number because
Yes.
it's anonymous. A lot of Talian Hill, all this kind of thing. They don't expect you to say nama saya memanggil dari. You don't have to. So that's that whole thing about if you're worried about the segan or privacy, you don't want to share your details. These lines exist, Befrienders and all that, for you to just talk. For you to just talk first, and that would be good. And these people on the other end of the line, memang diorang dilatih, dia berpengetahuan. They know how to handle these kinds of conversations. So yes, professional help is true, because maybe kita pun tak tahu apa.
And
we're not equipped to do it. So make sure do no harm at least, right?
Exactly. And also in the cases, I think some of us, we are aunties to our nephews and nieces. And a lot of time they confide in us and not their own parents. But if there is suicide ideation happening, that is one of the times that you will need to break that code that you have. The parents need to know. And because if it involves a minor and they need intervention or therapy, the parents have to give that consent.
Actually, I was talking to a psychologist recently, and I said, the teens these days, especially when they're talking, oh, I better just kill myself. It's a very standard line that they use tanpa memikir. And she actually said to me, when that is said by a teen, tolong investigate sikit. Tanya sikit soalan tu, sama ada mereka tu actually mean it ke, they are using it metaphorically ke.
Throwaway question ke memang tengah fikirkan, right?
Tengah fikirkan. Sebab there's also enough statistics to say among the neurodivergents, the tendency to have these thoughts is higher in women because of how much they mask.
Well, I got a story about that. Not suicide story. My eldest daughter, dia suka menulis. So, ada sekali tu dia tulis cerita lah. Cerita sangat menarik dan melibatkan suicide lah.
Okay.
Of course, I was like, bila I baca, depan dia baca, dia nampak kan reaksi muka. Terus cakap, no mama, no. It's not about me, mama. It's just a story. I was like, but of course, I check like, are you okay and everything. And because of the statistic, and then now that we know that, not that she's thinking about it on herself, but it's not a topic that she's shy about kan. Dia pun tahu the issue of suicide and everything. So I got dua orang anak perempuan autistik. Tadi cakap pasal kan perempuan. Bila kita berpindah dari KL ke Kota Kinabalu, of course perlu cari rumah lah. Even sekarang pun lagi 3 bulan kena pindah rumah lagi. Jadi proses yang sama untuk cari rumah. Terima kasih. Jadi cari rumah di Kota Kinabalu. Kota Kinabalu ada satu bandar di tepi pantai, pesisiran pantai lah. Jadi di tengah-tengah bandar Kota Kinabalu ada banyak kondominium tepi pantai. So ada sea view. Cantik. And then Kota Kinabalu is known to have the best sunset in the world.
Oh, I agree. Didi should.
So, of course, macam, kalau kita dapat view yang cantik kan, why not? But,
tak nak balcony tinggi.
Tak nak balcony. Sebab bila kita menyewa, kita tak boleh lah nak buat modification kan rumah kan. Kita nak buat renovation and everything. Jadi kalau rumah tu, yalah, bila nak sea view, mestilah ada balcony. Bila ada balcony, kita nak lepak dekat luar. And then rumah tu tak ada grill, tak ada ni kan. Ada sliding door biasa je. We did not want to take the risk. Even before kita pindah hujung tahun lepas pun, I did talk to psychologist anak-anak. Cakap, okay, this is what I fikir lah. The risk nak duduk rumah landed ke, nak duduk kondo. But kondo, I'm afraid of this. Sebab anak-anak saya umur 13 dan 15 tahun, fasa yang mereka dah boleh untuk berdikari, untuk ditinggalkan beberapa jam. Boleh.
Of course.
And then bukan setiap masa lah, 24 hours I jaga kan. So kalau kita duduk kondo yang dengan balcony yang tak ada grill, view cantik, and then kita tak tahu kan kalau ada tiba-tiba dia dalam keadaan depressed, kan risiko dah ada. Dengar suara-suara halus yang disebabkan oleh hallucination. Kita tak bukan bercakap tentang makhluk halus ke apalah. Hallucination daripada dalam diri dia sendiri.
Our own voices messes up the most.
Exactly.
Our
and
own.
Then see, I did not want to take the risk. So it's one thing. It's very morbid lah kan. Kita nak cakap macam tak nak pilih rumah cantik sebab nak prevent suicide. But
No, ada orang ada orang tak nak duduk dekat dengan swimming pool, sungguh pun mampu, pun tak nak. Dia kata tak ada kena dengan apa, tapi saya tak nak kena dengan
tak
swimming
nak
pool ni.
risiko
Just
lepas.
tak nak, you know. So
betul,
it's
betul.
I think it's okay. I think it's fair.
It's
We will just, you know, some people will say it's like overthinking or whatever, but if it's crossed your mind and you do it, it's not like you tak tidur malam fikirkan benda ni kan. It was just like okay lah, kriteria antara rumah, because nak cari rumah pun macam susah
betul.
kan. So dia kata okay lah, antara benda yang kita tak nak macam ni lah, it's okay.
Yeah,
Sometimes when you tighten your criteria, it's going to be easier
makes it easier for you to find
something. Yes, it's not just like anything, anywhere, you know.
process of elimination.
Yeah,
it's
so
okay.
when we know the
Eliminate.
risk, kita tak tunggu sampai anak
Something
depressed, anak ada risiko kita tahu ada. Anak dah
Yeah.
sampai level yang makin besar risiko,
Yeah.
makin
Betul.
hampir dengan statistik untuk kita
Yes.
ambil steps lah untuk
Yang
prevent.
wajar, ya.
Yeah.
Sebab kita mak-mak neurodivergent. So kita fikir step
Ahead.
A, B, C, D, E.
Z,
F, G.
Z.1 pun ada.
That's why nak plan mana nak duduk pun kena ada accommodation sendiri.
Yeah.
Yes. And even with all that plans, sometimes it doesn't go according to that plan.
Yeah.
Because our kids know better than
We can't
us
control
what they need.
everything.
Yeah, we can't control everything. But where we can control, where we can keep our children and ourselves safe, we do that.
Yes.
And also for my mental health lah. Daripada I
Yep.
Your own mental health.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
kan,
Important.
selalu
Yeah.
terfikir
That you have a
macam-
balcony, and then it might just be an accident, because the pool thing is not so much like a whatever. It could be a situation, you know.
Yep.
Yeah. It
Likewise
might not
with the
even
swimming
be
pool.
suicide. It's an accident.
Yeah.
So we also hear about the tendency of suicide in new mothers who have postpartum depression. And it was not something that was so widely spoken about a long time ago.
Yeah.
But sekarang ada memang sangat
Kejadian, ya.
sangat diperkatakan.
Yes.
And especially kalau kadang-kadang anak mereka tidak it was a difficult delivery, ataupun anak mereka ada ketidakupayaan at birth, atau perlu ada intervensi daripada
Or just
baby,
baby having a difficult time. You know,
Yes.
some babies have colic. Ada baby yang kerap nangis. Ada baby yang tak berapa
Tak tidur
senang
malam.
nak tidur. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then that one, I think the thing with that is the tragedy of like a double thing sometimes happening, right?
Yeah.
It's the I'm going nuts,
Yes.
and I'm going to like really like him.
Mm.
I'm sorry, I was being flippant. Maybe I shouldn't use the word nuts, but like I'm in a lot of pain.
Yep.
Whatever, it could be the hormonal thing also and things like that. But I'm going to do something to my baby, and then after that, I'm going to do something to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and we know that those stats exist too.
Yeah.
Can we stop now?
Yes. So topik ni memang sangat berat, but it's very necessary for us to talk about it. So with that, we will take a short break, and we will be back with another question on ChitChat MakMak Neurodivergent. Hai, selamat kembali ke episod ke-35 Kita Family Podcast. Sebelum break tadi, kami berbincang tentang topik tentang suicide dan what should we say, what should we not say to people or family members in that situation. So hari ni dalam episod kami on ChitChat MakMak Neurodivergent, kita ada satu lagi soalan atau topik yang memang sangat menarik, and kerap kali I think anyone who has a neurodivergent child, especially sebab neurodivergence ni bukan fizikal, so tidak dapat dilihat secara fizikal, memang akan ditanya soalan seperti ni, like, betul ke anak you autistic? Kenapa you nak label? Nampak okay je. So let's talk about it. Siapa nak start dulu?
Okay.
We all looking at
Pada
you.
saya, bila saya dengar macam tu kan, I rasa macam orang tak faham apa yang kami lalui. Bukannya any parent nak sengaja label anak tau. I memang yang tu memang tak boleh brain. Okay.
Macam suka-suka je sebut macam ni kan?
Macamlah kita suka sangat nak bagi label, nak cakap anak kita ni lain, atau you know, tak normal. That is not the intention. Macam kalau ada seseorang itu mengidap katalah penyakit kanser, benda tu takkan obvious. Dia di bahagian dalam tubuh, sel-sel memberontak semua tu kita tak boleh lihat. Apa yang orang tu lalui pun kita tak boleh lihat. So to me, it's quite insensitive lah to ask those questions, because I don't think parents sengaja nak beri label itu. Mereka juga ada menjalani proses. Mereka pergi untuk dapatkan diagnosis sebab ingin membantu seseorang anak itu. That is the intention.
Absolutely. Didi?
Betul. Sebab ada juga masa-masa bila kita cakap, bawa anak pergi terapi. Tak payahlah. Anak makcik dulu pun lambat bercakap. Sekarang okey je. Dah masuk universiti. Dah kerja bagus.
Doa lebih-lebih.
So rasa macam tahu tak, hantar pergi terapi ni bukan senang tau. Dengan kita kena bawa anak tu, anak yang masa kecil hyper. Macam saya 2 orang, lepas tu dekat hospital dengan seorang dukung, seorang dalam stroller. Bukan suka-suka pergi terapi. Tiba-tiba ada orang cakap macam tu kan. So sebenarnya orang memang tak faham. And dia ingat doktor yang diagnose tu macam senang-senang bagi macam diagnose. Kalau kita cakap sakit tekak, doktor tu percaya yelah sakit tekak. Macam tu je. Sedangkan assessment untuk dapatkan diagnosis autism ni bukan senang.
Compare dia sakit tekak you. Okay, sorry.
Yelah, diagnosis bukan senang. Bukan you pergi klinik biasa you boleh dapat tak diagnosis autism ni. Tak. Dia daripada pakar. Doktor biasa pun tak boleh bagi diagnosis. Jadi bila dapat diagnosis ni, yelah macam Nani cakap lah, dia sesuatu yang bukan mudah, bukan kita suka-suka. Kalau boleh kita bila access tu, kalau lah doktor tu cakap tak ada apa ni, perlukan sikit intervention, terapi sikit je nanti akan okey. Takkan kita suka-suka tak apalah, dah autism kan, tak apa, saya ambil dulu label autism. Tak, bila doktor kata tak pun kita nak macam tak ada doktor, autism tak, tolonglah.
It doesn't work that way.
Walaupun nampak macam kita kan berlima, autism mom, nampak macam wah dah jadi autism mom ni macam semacam je kan. But earlier no,
it's like point of pride, right? Yeah, well, it has become something to be proud of, but it took a while.
Sebenarnya selalunya cakap diagnosis or labeling tu is always directed at the anak-anak or the individual. Tapi I think it's beyond, because kalau lah bukan yang label so it's how we say it. Kalau you ada high blood pressure, is that a label or is that a diagnosis? Because we sudah familiar and we accept. Kerana kenapa nak dapatkan diagnosis tu?
Nak dapat ubat,
nak dapatkan perubatan, or on the other side
manage the condition,
nak dapatkan sokongan medical. So kerap kali when we do label diagnosis, again we look at the individual or the anak. Tapi sebenarnya kami boleh gunakan perfahaman tu also for the teachers.
Betul.
And we always forget, ibu bapa sendiri akan dapat sokongan sendiri untuk menyokong anak-anak. So janganlah kecil hati sangat dalam label ni. Again, kalau kami encourage the village to help, kan, we need to faham, we understand. Remember that basic 4A. Bila sudah understand, baru kami accept, then we appreciate, then baru act. So dari segi tu, label tu, we just membesarkan how we look at label.
Okay, so kakak, while you're here, just to, yelah kalau kita nak make sure benda ni betul-betul jelas. Apakah perbezaan antara label ni, nak menamakan sesuatu, dengan diagnosis? What would you say is the difference between the two, or is it a different way of saying the same thing?
Again, there are many contexts, kan? I always like context. In some countries, bila dapat diagnosis, actually to get diagnosis tu formal lah. Kerana sama ada guna DSM ke, guna lain-lain punya standard, WHO ke. Kenapa? Nak dapatkan biasanya sokongan finance, untuk masuk sekolah ke, and so forth.
Therapy,
akomodasi,
the therapy. Tapi as we know, different countries will have different rules, regulation, policy. sama ada diagnosis tu akan mendapatkan sokongan yang mana.
Bantuan kebajikan ke,
Betul.
bantuan extra send special education needs
Betul.
ke.
Secara rasmi.
Secara rasmi.
Okay.
Then sometimes it's language.
Okay.
Diagnosis versus labeling. The label tu is menama, penama or penjenama. What's the correct bahasa? It's a jenama lah. It's like it's a title.
Okay.
So there's
Actually label ni, to my mind, I asked you because in my mind I think sometimes label ni kita boleh gunakan tanpa diagnosis. And that is maybe part of the issue or the
Formal
problem
and
also
informal.
sometimes, and why is the question lah, kan?
Betul,
Yeah.
betul. So again, jangan kecil hati. Clarify with the person who uses the label ke, nak guna ke, macam how do we hujahkan tu. Betul tak?
Betul.
So it takes a village. Jangan kecil hati. Kalau label and you are comfortable, so be it. But I think maybe the Nori, the good way to look at this is the formal part, which is diagnostic, and labeling, which is a reference. Okay, but it's a choice. Selalunya, it's a choice.
So I think it goes back to the last thing Anit kata pada permulaan segmen 2 kita ni kan. It's like, apakah tujuan kita? Adakah ia akan membantu? Dan ini adalah sebabnya kita mendapatkan diagnosis atau menggunakan label. I think that's what it is sebenarnya. So it's not like kita suka-suka saja-saja atau like pilihan, sebab ada pilihan. I think it is really about
Jangan don't take it too lightly, because it is a serious matter. If we need the diagnosis, ada banyak benefitnya. Dapat sekolah untuk anak, self-awareness, employer support, school support, school exemption, banyak yang positif.
So maybe kalau between the two, label maybe ada pilihan lah sedikit sebanyak. Because sometimes the label can be like, how do you want to refer yourself?
Autistic or person with autism.
Right?
But at the same time, for me, saya rasa autistic dia bukan label. It is not. To me, I don't see it as a label. And I think we have to see it from the lens of different people lah. Like if someone feels that, Hans ni dia nampak okay je, he looks fine, why are you labeling him?
Tapi
right?
Hans handsome.
Tapi Hans handsome, dia comel, right? And he looks fine, but he's not.
Tapi I have to say, dari segi professional, we won't label. Dari segi professional, so depend what hat lah kan.
Exactly.
Janganlah the suggestion is label is negative, and I think the general bias will think like that.
Well,
That's
if you want to own one for yourself, it's a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Tapi untuk memberi tu, maybe that's the one yang kita kena
Jagakan hati dan mulut.
Sebab
kita.
Sebab tak semua orang ready tau. Ataupun anak dia belum dapat diagnosis, kita pula suka-suka cakap, anak you macam autistik je.
That is antara benda yang kita kalau terfikir tak payah sebut
tolonglah filter. And then also I think we cannot do away bila cakap pasal label ni, stigma. So kenapa orang tak nak dapatkan diagnosis ataupun dah dapat diagnosis tapi tak nak declare, mungkin dekat sekolah tak nak bagi tahu,
kongsi, tak nak cerita.
Back to our first question this episode, dia akan membawa kesan negatif.
Betul.
The mental health part akan terkesan, and then we don't know what happens from there.
Yes, we don't know. And how the trauma of my parents do not accept me for who I am will translate to.
That is big. So, I'm reminded of a quote. Stigma is plain dangerous. I heard this at a lecture from Dr. Rania Awad, who is a renowned, psychiatrist and researcher, and she was talking about mental health awareness, and one of the biggest issues is the problem of stigma. And she decided to say, stigma is just plain dangerous. It's not like, it's a bit negative, it's not nice, and we need to get. It was like, no, danger. There's a real danger in allowing stigma to continue.
Because it has a knock-on effect to discrimination, and we all know that those who are discriminated against can go into a very bad mental health spiral unless they get the correct support.
Mhm.
So you know when somebody is discriminated against and they have people rallying around them, they are able to fight off the discrimination
Betul.
and a lot of times come out shining.
No, yeah, because stigma ni antara kekangan bagi orang yang hendak mendapatkan bantuan sebenarnya. Stigma tu kadang-kadang antara sebab kenapa dia tak nak. Like as you said,
Mendapatkan
want to meluahkan cerita and things like that. But sometimes it is like for that person, it's like,
Just don't want to go
tak
down that
payahlah.
road.
Yeah, or the denial.
Yep.
Denial.
Yeah, denial nak menafikan seolah benda tu tak penting. But you know, like, come let's one of the things that was positive coming out of having to live dalam pandemic, hidup zaman COVID ni, is that ada kesedaran tentang kesihatan mental. Right?
Absolutely.
Let's
Betul.
keep that going. Perkembangkan lagi benda tu. Take away that stigma so that orang, macam sama seperti kalau kita tak sihat, kita demam panas ke, batuk, belatan, whatever, something dah jadi pada badan kita, kita cedera, kita akan pergi mendapatkan rawatan atau bantuan medikal. That should be the case if you have, something that's affecting your mental health, your emotional wellness and all that. Look, you're not well. Whatever it is that is not well, just go get help. It should be the same. Don't see it as any different because it's kononnya ada berkaitan with your otak, and that's the stigma. We have to we have to get rid of this.
I also like what Kakak said just now about it being a proper diagnosis. So macam Didi cakap tadi, kalau orang tu autistic tak semestinya tak boleh belajar, and then bukannya kena pergi masuk PPKI. Ia bergantung kepada further test and probably a educational psychology assessment. Dan itu adalah satu proses yang perlu dilalui. Dan bila telah dapat gambaran yang lebih jelas, baru kita dapat tahu apakah kelebihan dan kekurangan dalam proses pembelajaran seseorang itu. And that itself allows the parents, the educationists to say, oh, actually this child boleh belajar, ada photographic memory, tapi processing speed dia mungkin
agak lambat.
Ataupun ada isu berkenaan fokus. So kita dapat identify apakah kekurangan dan work on that.
Sokongan bagikan dia sokongan yang memang entitled to them as a student.
Wajar diterima, patut diterima, dan kita pun tak buat andaian je lah. Macam that's the antara benda-benda yang like like you're talking about reminding everybody and ourselves why kita buat kita family podcast ni kan. Kita nak bila kita sebut tentang peningkatan kesedaran, kita nak bagi maklumat yang tepat lah, yang betul, right? So kita tak naklah macam orang terus memikirkan bahawa setiap orang yang autistik mesti ada satu kemahiran dan bakat yang terpendam. Unfortunately, it's it doesn't it's not like 2-in-1, So you need to know exactly. Yelah autistik macam mana, and that's why kita ada yang it's like a famous saying, right? If you know one person with autism,
betul,
you
exactly.
know one person with autism. Everybody is different. Inilah antara sebabnya ia dipanggil spectrum.
Percayalah,
There's
sebab
a lot of
I
things.
ada dua. Percayalah, ada dua anak daripada ibu bapa yang sama, diagnosis yang sama, tapi totally different. Jadi macam, maksudnya bila anak kita mendapat diagnosis autism tu kan, dia ada satu macam payung lah kan, bila kita autism, tapi of course kita akan ada banyak lagi ciri-ciri yang kita perlu explain lah bila anak tu masuk sekolah baru ke, ataupun pergi ke menyertai apa-apa aktiviti kan, untuk dapatkan accommodation. So tanpa diagnosis, tanpa label kan, kalau kita tak bagi tahu anak kita autism, tapi kita list kan panjang, boleh ke?
I think boleh, because bergantung kepada konteks jugalah. Kalau di sekolah memang dia orang lebih tahu, dia lebih ingin tahu secara khusus because nak bantu anak pada dalam keadaan suasana pembelajaran. So I think they need to know the details. So I think that's fine. That's when I think you can be given a choice, because kita balik kepada tujuan, right? Adakah ini akan membantu? So what is more important is actually to give support to the person. Child ke adult. Not eligibility, but also to the knowledge of what is it, right? So if it's not a situation where, I think in that case, either the the label or the official diagnosis might not be the most important as the specific accommodation or support that is needed. So kalau kita boleh mendapatkan apa yang diperlukan, then it doesn't matter lah nak panggil benda ni apa. Because kadang-kadang ada antara diagnosis tertentu where there's an overlap. Right? But it results in the same thing. So is it really, really important to know what is the name of the thing, or do I need to know that this child needs a longer time to process and express themselves? Expressive communication mengambil masa yang lebih. Does it matter whether it's because it's ADHD or ASD? Not really, right? If I can accept, or the person yang nak membantu boleh terima that is the part yang diperlukan, then it doesn't matter why lah.
Saya boleh bagi contoh juga.
Okay.
Then I will come back to kakak. So contohnya anak saya Hans. His diagnosis kita dapat memang sangat awal at the age of 2. Kan? So only at the age of 6, when we started working actively with a regular speech therapist, did she tell me, your son has apraxia of speech. Kan? Which I had already suspected lah. Memang ada something wasn't right with the production of sounds and trying to say the words. Memang susah sangat. So then her question to me is, do you want to pursue a full diagnosis? But my answer was no, because the underlying issue is still the autism, and this particular therapist is still able to support my son tanpa the going down the whole road of the diagnosis.
Dia sanggup nak bagi sokongan, and you already thought that could be the case, right?
Exactly.
So cukup lah.
Cukup. And now we fast forward to the most recent one. Sama juga, I suspected dyspraxia, and I actually suspected dyscalculia as well. Tetapi at the developmental PEDS appointment, she confirmed dyspraxia and dysgraphia. Right? So knowing this, instead of, because kalau nak buat a full on assessment, kena tunggu appointment, have to go in again, reassess, buat latihan. So I'm thinking, we already know the underlying, yang the major one is the autism. Walaupun dengan dysgraphia and dyspraxia, we can read up on dyspraxia and dysgraphia to find out about it. Tetapi the accommodation still need to be made further because he's autistic. Ada je orang yang dysgraphia but not autistic. So whatever is in the buku, for example, memang it applies to that person who's only dysgraphic. Tetapi bila ada autism in the mix, right? So is for me at this point, I would rather work with the individual cikgu dan therapist dan baca buku on my own, then go and pursue the diagnosis for all three.
So it's like as long as you get what you need.
Yes.
Whatever label works.
Whatever works.
Maybe you don't have to label or get a formal diagnosis.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's. I'm going to play devil's advocate. Okay, and it has happened. So let's say the parent knows this child is, for example, dyslexic.
Okay.
Okay, but the dyslexia has never stood in the path of the learning until the child's in secondary school. Child has gone through primary school without accommodation, and suddenly in secondary school the child starts failing. Tiba-tiba je. Tak pernah. Okay.
Feels like tiba-tiba.
Quite common in dyslexia.
But it's very common in dyslexia. Then the parents comes to the school and say, actually, my child ada diagnosis. I didn't want my child to feel any different. Sebenarnya anak saya mempunyai dyslexia. How would that?
Okay, cok. Ni macam ada dua perkara ni. Anak tu sendiri tahu dia dyslexic ke tidak?
Tak.
Okay, so where we have already talked about dalam episod yang keberapa ni, the importance of telling your child what they have, information about themselves, about their identity, including a diagnosis, right? So that's one.
Tapi tak nak label.
Tapi ada okay, kalau tak ada label pun, see so many questions. I want to know whether the child at least knows that even though there was a label, mak dia ada tak pernah sebut macam, you ni jenis yang memang this thing is hard for you. I get it, and I'm going to try to help you. Right? So without naming the thing, it's still bringing it up, right?
So I'm going to pull it in.
Okay.
And I love how you said, when the mak cakap, I know it's hard, and how can I help you? That suggests ada sokongan.
Okay.
So in the professional field, it's an approach. So Desiree, when your professional mentioned to you, she is working on it. It appears that Hans is progressing. Dia
Yes.
memang dapat progress lah.
Ada perkembangan
Ada
yang
kemajuan.
Yang positif.
Yes.
Yeah. Belum perlu the diagnostic. Okay. We all acknowledge diagnosis ni bukan saja mahal because there's not enough professionals.
Yes.
Number one, we have to acknowledge that.
mahal.
Second,
Susah nak dapat.
even for the child, we must also be concerned. Selalu buat testing pun sudah stress, betul?
Oh, memang.
It's very
Kesian.
So
Kesian.
for any good professional, we don't just the surgeons, we don't just take out the knife and shoot. Yeah, there are many considerations. So let me pull it back. Kalau ibu dapat memberikan sokongan for that dyslexia child, and the child continues to progress until the next stage that dia tersekat. Okay. So if the mother continue to support, dia boleh, good, fine, because the mother may equip herself or the carer lah. Then they go on to the next stage.
Tapi in Anik's scenario, everybody is stuck. Kan? Anak not doing well,
So-
mak bapak pun sekarang macam
So that's why please in discussion of labeling ke diagnosisnya, sebenarnya sokongannya is what everybody is asking. The child, the individual, even for the parent. In depending on where you're trained and depending on what support in the school allocation or financial. So for example, in some developed countries, they get financial support. They have to get a diagnosis.
Yes.
Kalau tak dapat diagnosis, tak dapat masuk sekolah ataupun tak dapat sokongan kewangan. So country to country, parents must be very aware, tak sama.
Betul.
But for every individual, what we want to do is what level of support. Okay. So coming back then to the professional's role, there is some professionals that will describe kesusahan yang mana so that the intervensi dari sekolah atau dari therapist will be acting on that struggle, that challenge. Sebelum dia tulis diagnosisnya. So it's approach. I'm sorry it's confusing. So do get to know the professional that is helping you.
Yes.
Okay. And it kena cucuk lah.
No,
What is your value?
Yeah, and if I can also say, in that situation, sounds like more information is needed by everybody involved. So communication has to happen. What that communication looks like could be the approach. How to get that information and all that also depends on what you need. And also what is needed, katalah by the school. So your context tadi was like sekolah kan? Masalah tu dah timbul di sekolah. So to me it sounds like anak pun perlu tahu lebih tentang diri sendiri.
To be able to self-assess.
To be able to, yes, and also later self-advocate, to also just deal with this and not feel stigma. For example, parents need to know more because sekarang ni tiba-tiba sokongan yang pada masa dulu berjaya dan cukup, sekarang tak cukup. So you need more, and then if you
Go
are
up to the
going
next
to the
level.
school, that means the school needs to know more. So then okay lah, maybe in this situation because you're playing devil's advocate and you're saying, well, then that means you need a diagnosis, right? Sounds like it,
So
but at
kalau
least
that's a diagnosis.
more information.
So
But he doesn't know
let me
how.
pull back to the positive side of this. Ibu bapa ke sekolah ke, the most important thing is early intervention costs less for everybody. So but we acknowledge kebolehan mana ibu bapa, you please must do as much as you can. Bila sudah tak mampu, whether in knowledge and in finance, you need to ask for help.
I think in this case, the parents really need help.
So
From every perspective.
let me be very careful. Sometimes
not just the
if
child, kan?
even you dapat diagnosis from a top intervention center, but if your anak masuk sekolah yang the school is not trained
Yes.
to sambut
exactly.
report tu,
Yes. Tak boleh mengimplementasikan apa-apa.
Tak
Just
boleh beri
semuanya
tolong-
kena selaras
tolongan.
manage kan. So that is the complexity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we come back then to the question of stigma, actually the whole thing is for us to help open up access to support. That
That's
starts with education.
Ya,
Awareness, kan?
Balik-balik tu jugalah. I know some people are so sick and tired of it, as if kita tak progress langsung, like we have not moved forward from it. But I'm so sorry, it's true. We haven't. We have made some progress di Malaysia pun. Ada perkembangan yang agak positif, tapi maaflah, kita terpaksa memang masih menyebutkan tentang benda ni because tahap kesedaran masih tak cukup. Stigma masih ada. Kalau kesedaran tu tak ada, mana kita nak sampai tahap penghargaan? And then confirm lah kita tak boleh take action.
And the fact is, the kesedaran usually starts dengan mereka yang ada ahli keluarga that is impacted by it.
Ya,
In most cases.
Benda tu peribadi.
Yes.
Sesuatu yang akan mengesankan mereka secara peribadi, secara direct baru nak ambil tahu. Right? Kalau tidak, like, it's
If I could probably just give an analogy to tie this up. Macam dulu, kalau masa saya kecil lah, kalau seseorang itu mengidap sakit jantung, memang itu menjadi satu masalah kronik sebab rawatan yang sedia ada di Malaysia itu sangat kurang. Kebanyakan yang perlu dapat rawatan, katalah rawatan pembedahan jantung atau bypass surgery, perlu ke luar negeri atau luar negara. Tapi sekarang ini dah jadi perkara yang biasa sebab kesedaran berkenaan sakit jantung dan rawatannya memang sangat I mean it's available everywhere. Every person has it.
Because tahap jumlah orang yang mengidap sakit jantung ni amat tinggi. So of course we have to have the services accordingly lah. Permintaan untuk keperluan ini sangat tinggi. So everything has to bump up as such lah. So maybe this will also go up because the numbers are for diagnosis of all kinds of things memang meningkat kan.
Betul.
So even just to encourage, and we like to invite again our governmental agency.
Yes.
Policy perlu diadakan.
Betul.
Sebelum pun buat diagnosis, there is something we call screening aja. The process is simpler, less cost, but ini needs to have a organized, from awareness. The first organizable action memang screening aja. There are many public websites that you can do screening. Just to flag, please, this is not a diagnosis, tapi it will help pull out maybe the more higher need support first, kan? Ada borderline mungkin perlu get more professional help lah. Itu dia. So please be part of the action. You may not need to be ibu bapa, just be part of a village. I love to say it's beyond the village. Just join us to advocate lah.
Please just normalize this thing. Don't be so like so terkejut, terpelik to whatever. Like this is just another way of being human. Can we just get over it and just come on, let's get on with it. There's so many things.
I love the uniqueness, kan?
Uniquely human. Yes.
There you go.
Didi, you want to say anything?
Jangan sampai ada yang bila kita ada keluarga yang cakap, anak saya rasa macam ada ADHD, macam autistik, nak apply lah, nak jumpa, dapatkan assessment. Kemudian dia dah ada share, anak saya dah dapat diagnosis autism, dah dapat diagnosis dyslexia dan sebagainya. Dan ada pula kita ni yang sebagai onlooker, orang luar ni cakap, sikit je, tak payahlah apply kat OKU. Sedangkan mungkin mereka datang daripada keluarga yang kurang berkemampuan. Jadi bila tak apply kat OKU, tak layak dapat bantuan. Bila tak dapat bantuan dari segi kewangan, tak boleh nak masuk PDK kan. Kemudian ada banyak program yang memang dibuat untuk mereka yang ada kad OKU.
Apa-apa manfaat lah.
Jadi kita yang memandai-mandai ni cakap tak payahlah kat OKU, tak payahlah ni.
No, because that's connected back to stigma lah. Again, antara sebab untuk kita tak nak get the card.
And this is why our numbers are not accurate. Our numbers are not accurate. We see increase in diagnosis, tetapi data official di negara kita tak accurate.
So it's not a bad thing tau. Ada kad OKU, dia ada banyak benefits. It gives the right number to the government. Dah makin meningkat lah number of people on the spectrum yang ADHD ke dyslexia. Then only they can make plans kan. So please jangan memperkecil-kecilkan diagnosis ke label ni, dah pandai-pandai memberi
Yeah,
nasihat.
ataupun it's no big deal. I remember there was once, it was quite a long time ago, I do remember, and it was a friend, good friend. But when I first told her about the diagnosis, she was like, her response was like, no big deal, and I was very hurt. Really, I was shocked. Actually, I was very shocked that she looked at me like, oh, but it's okay, right? Like terus dia kata macam, don't worry lah, everything's going to be fine. I'm sure dia nak, mungkin dia nak bagi, dia nak bagi saya kata semangat ke apa. Tapi pada masa tu saya ingat saya diam lah lepas tu. Memang, terasa I was hurt. Like she was like, I said, I just told you something that is life changing for me, and you were like, oh, it's okay, no big deal, still your kid, love your kid. Like, I cannot remember her exact words, but
the one thing it definitely changes is your parenting journey. I think nobody can dispute that. This is why we are Kita Family, and we want to say that just because it changes your parenting journey doesn't change you as an individual, and it is not something that you need to look down on. We work on it, and we work on it.
No, and if it's going to change you, guess what? It usually changes you for the better.
Yes. Definitely for the better.
Let's topic for another day.
Topic for another day. Absolutely. We've talked about quite a bit today. Kan? ChitChat MakMak Neurodivergent, our episode number 35. Sebelum break, kami bincang tentang suicide, and then after the break, we talk about labeling and the things that people say because our kids look normal, for the lack of a better word, but actually how they function is very different. So memang banyaklah benda yang kami bincang hari ni. So I think we will be wrapping up now. Terima kasih for your support. Jangan lupa subscribe to us on YouTube. We are very, very close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. So please help us share our YouTube link and get your friends to subscribe. We are also on Spotify if you would like to listen to us instead of watching us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow our social media accounts on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook. And with that, we are signing off from Kita Family Podcast episode 35. Thank you very much. Bye. Jumpa lagi.
Bye.